Professor Pete here. We are continuing week 3. Hopefully this is going to be a short video. How to add foliage landscape into our scene. First off, we're going to go into where we left off and we're going to just click and delete. You can also click through here, shift click, and hit delete. I'm going to delete this walkway too. And so actually we just delete all that. The lighting we can keep and we can delete those later. But for now, what's this here? Delete that too. All right, so now we're going to start from scratch. If I hit play on the keyboard, the characters will just fall since there's nothing in the scene. So we'll start off with a landscape. This is the different settings for landscape in terms of the material, etc., number, the section size, and things like that. So the first thing we'll look at is how to create the landscape. We can click on the material or we can drag through here. So because I have the starter content loaded, go ahead and do that. If you don't have the starter content loaded, go to Epic Games Launcher. Go to Marketplace, go down to View 100 per page, and then on the very bottom, we'll see the open world. Double click on that, and then add it to the project, and whatever project your name is, and then add it. All right, so I have it added, and I'm gonna go to my materials, and I'm just going to go with this grass, and just drag it over here, so now the grass is there. Again, I'm gonna just keep this as default, hit create. It's created here. And now we can play with the sculpting tool. We can go with smoothing, flatten. I like the erosion, so I'm gonna put some erosion in here, and I'm gonna change the brush fall off to make it a little more linear. And I'm gonna change the brush size. I'm gonna increase the strength, but I will reduce the size, click and drag, and so that way we have this kind of rough surface on our world so far. And if I hit play, click, you'll see that the surface is pretty rough as I run around in the scene. Looks pretty good, I'd say. I need to delete this text that's here. Hit escape on the keyboard, and that is how you create a landscape. Now, moving on, let's go ahead and add some foliage. We're going to add a foliage by adding down here. We can add different types, whether it's static or an actor. So we go back to starter content. You go to, when you do add the open world starter content, there will be something called kite demo. And this is where you'll find a lot of your environments, ground tiles, trees. And this is a great place to then pull in and drop foliage. So there's the tree in there. Under environments, there's you can add rocks, some foliage here as well, some ferns. I'll add there. And so as you add things, again, you have to make sure you're on the model. Then you can start painting. So you can also hit, you can see the brush size and the density of it. You can increase the density. And when you do click, you've got, wow, it's really dense. You got tons of trees and foliage added to your scene automatically. That's kind of a lot. So you may want to change the paint density even more. Maybe you want to increase the size, so when it does create, it's not so dense. So this looks okay. And I'm using the mouse, which I didn't mention in the other video. We have left mouse button and middle mouse click, and then you have middle mouse scroll wheel that zooms in and out. But the left mouse rotates. You can also, it's similar to Maya, so you can also go Alt left mouse, Alt middle to also pan, and then Alt right to zoom in and out. So again, just like Maya. As you can see here too, it's trying to build, so you can see that the shaders are compiling there in the top left hand corner, and it says lights need to be rebuilt. But there is, just by adding a couple of pieces of foliage, you've got a pretty interesting environment. And then now if you want to play the game, again, it's a little choppy. Click and then, as everything is getting built, it's a little slow, but it starts to speed up. As it says here, it's under 10 frames per second. And there you go, now we're at pretty good speeds. And it's pretty choppy, like I said. So you have to be a little careful in terms of how many things you have here, and you can go and also delete some of these So going under this mode, you can go ahead and delete, but I think ends up deleting all of it. So you'd have to go back to foliage, and as you are painting it in, holding down shift removes some of those trees. So, maybe changing the brush size, changing the brush size, and then by that you can just hit shift and start deleting if you want some of the trees that are there. It's too much. So when you hit play, it should move a lot faster. So anytime you want to add more foliage, it's pretty straightforward. You can then remove these. You can just uncheck those, and then you can go into maybe finding some grass. And there's the field grass. You can drag that in as foliage type. If you don't want to drag it in as foliage type, you can also just drag it into the scene, and it'll come in this way as well. So as you draw, you can have some grass that's there. It kind of grows. Again, the paint density is pretty low, but if you increase the paint density, you can have more of those pieces of grass, the field grass, into the scene. And just give it some time to let it grow, because it needs to be rebuilt. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward. I wanted to show you how to have the landscape, create foliage, and use the open world starter content. Go through the kite demo folder and find some things in there. Lots of rocks and different models that you can choose from. That's all I got to say. Professor Pete out. Keep learning.